I have a spreadsheet with about 400 rows of fees in it. And for most of a year, I used it to tell myself this was going fine. Every row in that sheet is accurate. I still think building it was one of the more useful things I have done in this hobby. It was also counting somewhere around a 20th of what the activity actually cost me. Fees are the part you watch leave. They arrive with a number attached, and once you have written them all down, it feels like the accounting is finished. You have done the smallest of three things. What the fee videos already cover. I have made a video about the fee floor, about the point where a transaction costs more than the thing you are trying to move is worth. There is another one about the 6-column sheet you keep so you know what you actually spent. And an older one about setting a gas budget across a set of wallets before you commit to any of it. All three of those count money that visibly leaves a wallet. That is the direct spend, and the direct spend is worth counting. This one is about the two costs that never touch a chain at all, do not appear on any explorer, and are between them very much larger. Why I think in cost sheets, I run mobile proxy lines and a rack of Android phones as a business. Real SIMs on real carriers in a room that needs its own fan. A SIM is about $10 a month. A modem depreciates at roughly $1.50 a month across the life I get out of it. A powered hub carrying 30 ports is $150, and the machine everything hangs off was $200. I know those figures because I sell the lines. Get the cost wrong, and you spend a year selling below cost without ever noticing. So when somebody tells me their side project is doing well, my first question is what they left out of the denominator. It is almost always the same two things. The money that is only sitting there, a wallet that is going to look like it belongs to a person has to have something in it. Not a fortune, enough to bridge, enough to swap, enough that the position you take is large enough to survive the fee floor. Call it $400, and it has to stay there because a wallet you drain in month 2 stops accruing whatever it was accruing. So that money is parked for a season, and a season is usually a year or more before anybody finds out whether it meant anything. Parked money costs you something. That is the plainest idea in finance, and it vanishes from view the moment the money is in a wallet rather than in an account that sends you a statement. What the dull alternative is worth. The honest way to price it is to ask what that money would have earned in the dullest thing available to you. Not the best thing, the boring one, the one that needs no skill and no attention, whatever that happens to be where you live. I am not going to quote you a rate. Rates move, they differ by country, and none of this is financial advice. What I will do is pick a figure to show you the shape of the arithmetic, and label it illustrative, because the shape is the part that matters. Say 4% a year, purely illustrative. 6 wallets at $400 each is $2,400. Once I counted what was also sitting inside protocols, the real parked figure over that stretch was closer to $3,200. $3,200 held for 18 months at that illustrative rate is roughly $190 of return that never arrived. That is a real number. It does not feel real because nobody sends you a bill for it. The third one, and it is not close. Then there is time, and time is where the whole argument lives. Think about what an ordinary week of this contains. Reading a thread to work out whether something is worth doing. Bridging, waiting for the bridge. Checking it landed, doing the interaction. Going back the next morning because you did not quite trust it. Do that across 6 wallets and you are not doing it once. 2.5 hours a week is a low estimate for anybody genuinely keeping up. Across 18 months, that is roughly 200 hours. 200 hours is 5 working weeks. Put any number you like on an hour of your life. I am not going to tell you what yours is worth, and anybody who does is guessing at it. At $20 an hour, illustrative again, 200 hours is $4,000. The 3 of them side by side, gas across those wallets over 18 months, straight out of my own sheet, came to about $130. Foregone return on the parked capital, illustrative, about $190. Time, illustrative, $4,000. The cost everybody tracks is 3% of that total. The cost nobody tracks is 92% of it. And the 2 that people do count are the 2 easiest to shave. which is why so much of the advice in this space is about saving $4 on a bridge. Now the volume argument. This is the part that changed how I run things, and it has nothing to do with detections. When you add a wallet, the capital goes up in a straight line, another $400 part, identical to the last one. The time goes up in almost a straight line too. Some of the reading is shared across wallets, so 2 is not quite double 1. The clicking is shared by nothing, and the clicking is most of it. The expected allocation does not go up in a straight line. Assume the filters are perfect. I want to make this argument without touching Sybil detection at all. I have already made that video, and it arrives at the same place by a completely different road. So assume the filters are perfect and fair. Assume no honest user is ever clustered. Nobody is ever wrongly flagged, and every wallet you run is scored on its own merits by a process with no errors in it. Volume still loses. Why the second wallet is worth less than the first? Allocations tend to be banded. You cross a threshold, you land in a tier, and doing 3 times as much inside that tier moves the outcome very little. So the first wallet captures most of what one participant can capture. The second captures that same band again, which is real. The 10th is competing for your attention against 9 others and getting a 9th of it. Thin attention across 10 wallets produces 10 thin wallets. The qualifying behavior is usually the deep part, and the deep part is the first thing to get dropped when you are tired on a Sunday night. So the cost line is straight and the return line bends. Those two cross somewhere, and for most people running this around the job, they cross a great deal earlier than the forum threads suggest. The number of wallets that is defensible on this arithmetic alone is small. Same answer the Sybil argument gives, reached without needing the Sybil argument to be true. What I actually run, I ran 6 wallets for most of the period I have been describing. I run 3 now, and I will not go above 4. 3 suits me, and I derived it from nothing more principled than that. It is the count where I can still do the deep version of the activity on each one before it turns into a queue of chores. The test I use is whether I would be embarrassed to explain out loud what each wallet did in the last month. At 3, I can do that. At 6, I could not. The part that is not a cost. Now the counterweight, because everything above is one-sided and I do not want to leave it there. The time is not pure cost if you are learning something. My first 6 months of this taught me more about how these systems behave than any amount of reading would have. What an approval really is. Why a failed transaction charges you anyway. Why the balance on your screen is a different thing from money you can move. I used some of that. It made me better at reasoning about infrastructure I do get paid for. But learning front loads. It arrives in the first stretch and then thins out fast. The 200th identical interaction teaches you nothing. By then you are not learning, you are working, and the hours should be priced as work, and some people simply enjoy it. The other counterweight is simpler. Some people like this. They like watching a new protocol do its thing. They like the small ritual of it on a Sunday morning. That is a perfectly legitimate reason to spend an evening, and I am not going to argue anybody out of it. I only want it filed in the right place. If it is a hobby, the hours are what you were going to spend the evening on anyway, and everything above stops applying. The test is one question, asked honestly. Would you still do this if you knew for certain the allocation would be 0? If yes, it is a hobby, and the arithmetic is somebody else's problem. If no, it is an investment, and an investment where you refuse to count 90% of the input is not one you can evaluate. Whether any of that means you should carry on is a separate question, and there is a separate video for it. What I got wrong. For about a year I counted gas and called it accounting. Worse, I used the gas figure to defend the activity to myself. The fees were small, so the thing was cheap, so continuing was obviously fine. The specific error I can point at is adding 4 wallets inside a single month, on the reasoning that I was already sitting at the computer anyway. That sentence is the entire mistake in 9 words. The time was already committed, so the marginal wallet felt free. It was the most expensive line in the whole ledger, and I had priced it at 0, the limit of my own argument. I cannot prove the bending part. What I have is my own allocations across 6 wallets over a couple of seasons. One operator, a small sample, and no visibility into how any of it was scored on the other side. It is possible returns are closer to linear than I think, and that my 3-wallet position is just me rationalizing the amount of effort I felt like putting in. I doubt it. But I would rather say it than pretend the arithmetic is settled. The capital and the hours I am confident about. Those are subtraction, and subtraction does not hold opinions. The disclaimer meant literally, nothing here is financial advice. I am not telling you what any token will be worth, what any program will pay, or what rate of return is available anywhere. The percentages above are illustrative, and I labeled them that way on purpose. What I will say is that 2 of your 3 costs are invisible by construction, and invisible is a long way from small. The sheets, the way I price the hours, and the full write-ups are all there. Everything is at airdropfarming.org. Subscribe for more on airdrop farming.